This is Jennifer Pepito with the Restoration Home podcast. This is the show where we talk about the peaceful path to connected families and restored communities. Today, I'm excited to talk about simple summer school. So many of you are in the months of summer and you are trying to figure out what to do with your children. You want to give yourself and your children a break without totally trashing all of the rhythms that you built up over the school year in our Restoration Home community, which opens later this month in June. So watch for that announcement. We've been working all year on amazing habits. We've worked on our morning routine. We've worked on our evening routines. We've worked on chore chart follow through. So our kids are learning how to do their chores without being asked. And over the summer, we don't want to just let all those habits slide. Last month, we worked really hard on even teaching our children to follow directions. We played direction games every day as one of our habits. We also read out loud to our children every day. And so, as you are planning for a summer, I think it's important to think about some rhythms. I'm going to talk about some fun school activities in a minute. But first of all, think about some simple summer rhythms that you could keep going so that you don't lose all the progress you made over the school year. For instance, you might have a summer morning time. In our homeschool, over the 26 years of homeschooling, we kept a summer morning time rhythm going. It was such a joy, even in the hot days of summer, to gather together and read wonderful books. You could read some more summer themed books like Swallows in Amazon, or you could finish your Playful Pioneers studies by reading Little Town on the Prairie. There's so many amazing books that you could read over the summer. You could do some skill review during summer. You could maybe have some science flashcards or math flashcards that you review over the summer, and just keep a simple summer morning time going so that it's easier to transition into school in the fall. And then also, summer is a great time for your own simple summer rhythms. Like if you have worked hard at a 10-minute workout routine every day, or you've worked hard at a new journaling habit, summer is a great time to keep those habits going so that, like I said, as you transition back into school in the fall, you're not as lost and you're not having to sort of start over, because summer was a construct. The whole idea of like this whole summer off, that was for children who had to work in fields, who had to work on the family farm, bringing in the harvest. It wasn't meant historically to be a time where you just lose all the good habits you built and do nothing all summer. So having some great summer rhythms is going to really help you transition back into the school year with peace. And then over the summer, we actually incorporate some connection based games. So I want my children to stay connected to me through the summer. And it's a good time to kind of enjoy some different learning experiences. So one of the games that we play is called the story game. And in the story game, everyone gets a piece of paper and they have 2 minutes to write whatever they want. You can even do just 1 minute. And then when the timer rings, you pass the paper. And so everyone has a new piece of paper with somebody's story starter on it. So when you get that piece of paper, you keep writing on the story. And it becomes a really funny little story because everybody's trying to out dramatize the last person and write an even more interesting and engaging story. So it's a super good way to just practice your literacy and your composition skills and have a little fun. And then another thing that we do at the beginning of summer is just write 10 goals for the summer, or 10 things you want to learn, or 10 things you want to do, creating some kind of a summer bucket list. And you can make it a visual list by adding, some little pictures of ice cream cones beside eat ice cream, or go to the lake and draw a picture of a lake. So this could be a fun summer activity with your kids that also feels a little bit playful. Another fun summer school is just describing your perfect summer day. Have your children tell you about it, or draw it, or write about it, or in some way describe their perfect summer day. So these are a few fun literacy activities to kind of ease into summer with a little bit of learning. In the Peaceful Press, we have several great summer resources. We have the Summer Guide, which is perfect for preschool through elementary. There are phonics and counting skill activities, but there's also some really fun practical skills like make homemade lemonade, or make a lemon sugar scrub, or make lemon scones. There's some fun art skills like drawing a lemon and labeling its parts. There's some great nature science like making lemon volcanoes. That's one of our favorite summer activities, is just making a little clay volcano and then pouring some baking soda and vinegar in it to make a volcano. So in our summer guides with the Peaceful Press, we have several different guides. There's the summer guide, there is the ocean guide, there's the desert guide, and the freshwater guide. You can buy those three of those guides as a bundle. So you could get ocean, freshwater, and desert as a bundle, or you can get our all four of our seasons guides as a bundle. So we'll link those in the show notes. There's so many ways to really expand your imagination this summer, to connect as a family. And that's one of the beauties of a simple summer rhythm, is just staying connected as a family instead of all scattering. In the summer guide, we also have different kind of themes. So one week is a lemon theme, another week is a bee theme. And on that bee week, one of the practical skills is making a chore jar. And so that's another thing that you could work on over summer as you're developing simple summer rhythms, is work on some chores with your children. There are so many practical skills that we need as humans to get along in the world. And summer's a great time to really press in on instructing those things to your children. So you could have a cooking camp for the week where you teach your children how to cook a few meals. You could have a gardening camp where, as a family, you work in the garden and plant a vegetable garden or plant some fruit trees. There are so many awesome skills that we can learn over the summer. One of the things that I did often during the summer, aside from my gardening adventures, was sometimes refinishing furniture or painting a room. Some of those summer projects that I didn't want to do during the school year got done over the summer. And so that's another way you can really connect as a family and be creative, is just doing some summer projects. In the Peaceful Press Chore and Routine Pack, we have some excellent ideas for developing those life skills. There's a whole list of life skills activities that you can just check out. There are chore cards. There's 120 chore cards. So you could set up just a little summer rhythm for your children where it's predictable for them and they know how to, get what they need and do the next thing over the summer rhythm. And then the other thing I want to talk about as we have this summer, like a peaceful summer school chat here, is wrapping up the year. One of the things that I also love about summer is the opportunity to kind of declutter and get ready for another school year. Simplicity is the theme this month. And so one of the things that we can do to simplify is just getting into the school year from last year and decluttering our thoughts about it, decluttering our closet. So for me, one of the things I do is I start planning the next school year while I'm still fresh with, like, oh, this was really hard, or we loved doing this together. I take time to interview my children and kind of ask them what they loved about the school year. I take time to start looking at curriculum, because this is a great time to start planning the coming school year. As you're thinking about, like, what worked, what didn't work. We really enjoyed studying world history with the precious people. So we're going to do European history next, so the Kind Kingdom. Or my children really loved science. We're going to add in some more science kits, or just kind of give them a chance to talk about what they loved. And also you do some journaling and think about, like, what worked and what didn't work. And it's better, as you're planning, to just plan for a little bit less than you think you can get done, as opposed to piling on too much and then feeling discouraged. And then the second thing that I do as I wrap up the school year is just prepare some simple report cards. In the Peaceful Press Planner, we have a grade tracker, and that makes it really easy at the end of the year to just kind of collect all the grades and make an average and put it on a report card. My children for many years were enrolled in a cover school, basically. And so we had an obligation to report to them what our grades were for the year and turn in a report card. So if that's you, if you have some kind of a school where you have to turn in grades, then you can just grab them all from your grade tracker and the Peaceful Press Planner. We'll connect that in the show notes as well. We'll link that. So you collect all your grades and create a report card. You might create some kind of a portfolio as well. Like for me, I have a file for each of my children for each school year. And in that file, I put a couple of work samples. As homeschoolers in different states, you have different regulations. And so you can check with HSLDA to find out what the regulations are for your state. For us, we kept a couple of work samples. wasn't required, but it was a good idea. And also I loved looking back at, the notebooking pages from the years with the Peaceful Press of notebooking our way through the Little House on the Prairie books, or drawing notebook pages for Shackleton's Endurance. Those were such special keepsakes to me. And so those go in my children's file as well. And then at the end of the school year, I put some of those things in the file. And then the rest of it, we might have a little bonfire and burn the school pages that we don't need to keep. Um, and the other thing that I do at the end of the school year is I actually go through our home library. Instead of keeping every single book on our shelf, we just have a small shelf in our kind of school living area. And so at the end of the school year, I will go through that shelf and I will take off all the books that we're done with for the year. And if there's a few that I want my children to maybe still read or review, I'll put them on a lower shelf, and I will bring in the books that are for this year. So in my garage library, I have a shelf for the Kind Kingdom, and I have a shelf for the Playful Pioneers, and I have a shelf for the Precious People. They're basically different cycles of history. So if we were curious about something from American history, we could go to that shelf and pull a book. And so then on the years that I'm doing one of those cycles of history, I pull those books inside and I create kind of a feast for my children. So even beyond the books that are in the curriculum, they have more books to pull. And so during the summer, I declutter all those books. I get rid of any that really weren't living books or weren't engaging. I shelve the ones that we're not going to be using in the coming year. And I make sure that all the ones that we are using are accessible. I also declutter our school supplies. It could be easy as homeschoolers to accumulate a lot of school supplies and not really have a very simple view or a simplified experience in our homes, but having a beautiful aesthetic in our homes, having things be simple and peaceful, it makes it easier for our children to learn. And so as you are thinking about summer and you're moving into summer, it might be a good time to get rid of broken crayons. And maybe what you could start doing is thinking about the things that you do need as back to school gifts. So often I would get a little basket for my children and I would put a new watercolor notebook, a new set of watercolor paints. And then at the end of the school year, we would kind of get rid of the ones that were all used up or sort of a mess. And so that there was this special thing to look forward to, the new school year supplies, but also we were constantly rotating things out that were broken or, the stubs of pencils, all of those kinds of things were able to be gotten rid of out of our home library. And so I actually have an Amazon shop. We'll also link in this episode so that you can look at our favorite watercolor notebooks or our favorite paint sets and things like that. So we declutter all that. We make sure we have, paper for the printer, and we make sure that each child's little school basket is cleaned out and restocked. So for my children, I have a small sort of a file. It's almost like a little file box, the kind that would stack some upright file folders. And in those, if I do have any workbooks my children are using or their own personal text, so for instance, their Institute for Excellence in writing guide would go in that. If there was a math workbook they were working through, that would go in there. If they had a critical thinking workbook or a foreign language workbook, those kinds of things would go in that little box. So during our school time, they could just pull that out and work their way through it instead of having all the supplies be scattered. And so at the end of the school year, that's where I also take out any of the papers from last year. So during the school year, I'm always putting papers that we've done into a file folder so that all the work samples are there. And if I need to check back for accumulating grades or getting any kind of a record, I can do that. But at the end of the school year, I just pull those 2 samples, burn the rest, or unless it's a really special notebook page, in which case it goes into a special keepsake file folder. And, I know that this comes up a lot for families. Is like, what do I do with all these art supplies? And what do I do with all this? And I say, take a picture of your child with the artwork. It doesn't all have to go in the attic to get handed down to your child when they're creating their own family and trying to start out with a simplified life. Instead, maybe take a picture and start working towards an album of your children's school year. So it'd be really special when they graduate to give them a chapbook with pictures of all of the things that they did throughout their school year, or give them a photo book that had pictures of them with the art they created. but not every piece of art needs to be kept. So that's one simple way to commemorate their hard work while also simplifying your home. So we've talked about simplified summers. We've talked about some summer activities you can do, and you can grab any of our summer resources on the peacefulpress.shop. We've talked about how to finish up or wrap up a year by clearing out the old school work, planning for the next school year, making your report cards, and keeping some work samples. And then we've even talked about how to kind of declutter some of our school supplies and maybe plan for that back to school workbook. But the other thing I want to talk about is even just simplifying your mind a little bit over summer. It can be easy at the end of a school year to maybe feel discouraged about how some things turned out, or feel a little bit overwhelmed by some things, or even just a little bit of unrest as you think about how the school year went and what you did or didn't do. And summer is actually a really good time for reflecting. One of the ways that you could simplify the next year for yourself is do a little bit of reflecting over the summer. I love taking a course over the summer. We have the Peaceful Path to a Living Education course available. So it might be good to take some kind of a homeschooling course over the summer. It might be good to do some more journaling over the summer so you can really sort of think about like what was life giving for you this school year? What brought unrest? Because if you just keep plowing ahead, maybe you used a boxed curriculum this year and there were a lot of tears and a lot of pain, and it didn't bring your family together. So if you have come to that conclusion, if you know that happened, then summer is a really good time to just journal about that. Wonder and ask yourself, why did I feel like I had to do that box curriculum when it was clearly making us so miserable as a family? So maybe ask yourself some questions and do some journaling about it. And then also maybe just start a thankful list over the summer. It's easy for our brain to start getting to a rut, to start thinking the worst about every situation, or complaining about our kids, or feeling burdened down by what we have to do. But sometimes we can just simplify our minds a little bit by starting a thankful list, by thinking about all the blessings. There's so many women in the world actually who would love to have a family or would love the opportunity to homeschool. And you have that opportunity. And so maybe summer would be a good time to start a thankful list of the things that are great about your life. I'm so thankful that I can make art with my children and look at art and read beautiful prayers together with them and identify medicinal plants. I have some posters back here. I'm so thankful I can work in the garden with my children and create good habits together. And there's just so many ways that our life as homeschool moms is so beautiful. And if the school curriculum that you used last year didn't contribute to that peace and beauty, then you might want to look at something else. The Peaceful Press, as people have been using it over the last 8 years, one mom said, "You've given me endless courage and confidence to homeschool differently since spending a year with Playful Pioneers. With this being my 9th year of homeschooling, the year we used Playful Pioneers goes down in history as our most successful, enjoyable, and highest retention for learning we've ever had in a school year." So you don't have to keep doing a boring, tedious curriculum. You can start doing something more life-giving, reading beautiful books to your children that help cultivate virtue and a worldview, doing art, making projects together, baking together, having nature study. All of these things are included in the Peaceful Press resources, and you can have a more life-giving education as you simplify down to what is really important. We'll also link our free How to Get Started Homeschooling book in the show notes. It just gives you kind of simple step-by-step instructions for teaching the different subjects. But I recommend going through the Peaceful Path to a Living Education course. It really breaks it down for you, gives you tips on getting started. It presents even the different kinds of homeschooling that you could do. So if you're kind of wondering, like, what is my philosophy? It helps you understand what some of the homeschool philosophies are. It's a great starter. And some families say they actually watch it every year as they get started. So over the summer is a great time, to do a course, whether it's the Peaceful Path to a Living Education course, or maybe you do some math research, or you spend some time studying how to teach writing, or just spend some time kind of in teacher preparation over the year. So I talked about so many things in this little chat here. We talked about some summer fun, like the story game, or making crafts together, or making a summer bucket list. Other summer fun that are available in the Peaceful Press summer guides, like making lemonade or lemon sugar scrub, or teaching your children chores. We talked also about wrapping up the homeschool year by kind of decluttering last year's supplies and tracking out your grades and interviewing your children about what you want to do next year. And then we talked about spending some time this summer simplifying your own mind through journaling, some of the things that didn't or did go well. Maybe even if you need to cry a little bit about the things that were hard, and then forgive yourself for your mistakes and start keeping a thankful list. Start focusing on the good things in your life. We have the Restoration Home community opening up in a couple weeks where you can join us to develop these incredible habits that are creating more peaceful homes for our families. Thanks for joining today.